Hi, I'm your host Praveen Ravisankar, and this is the Data Standard Audio Experience. We have a very exciting guest today. On our podcast, we have Salih Ergut, currently who's the Chief Data Scientist and R&D Officer at OrData. Today, we're speaking about AI within the telecom industry and future industry applications of data science. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for coming on the show today. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Salih Ergut. I am the Chief Data Science and R&D Officer at OrData. OrData is a technology company with close to 70 employees, most of whom are engineers. We are focused on creating data value from the data, big data, for different verticals, ranging from telecommunication to finance to e-commerce to manufacturing. We are working with very big companies in the region. We consult and deploy big data technologies and develop use cases on them. We also have a considerable size of machine learning engineers who is focused on working on ML-related problems in different sectors. I'm also serving as the Vice Chair of the International Telecommunication Union's focus group on autonomous networks, where we are trying to expedite the introduction of machine learning for mobile operators and in the telecommunication sector.
I guess it's safe to say that you're more than qualified for this podcast. And I wanted to first touch on your experience with the telecom industry and how the telecom industry deals with a ton of data and a lot of sensitive data right now. So I wanted to touch on what are the most important aspects of AI within the industry and how do you see it going?
I mean, data is the new oil. That's what they say these days. And mobile operators are actually working with huge amounts of data in their day-to-day operations. And there has been, like, the machine learning is not new for the operators. They have been using many use cases, especially non-critical use cases, from churn prediction to customer segmentation to offering new products for their customers. Next best offer type of applications. But it has been rather slow for the network use cases to pick up using machine learning. There are several factors for this. One of them is the talent, that you need both domain knowledge and machine learning engineers. So it is quite challenging, especially to reach the machine learning talent, yet alone somebody who has both experiences. And then the second part is there are certain aspects of the telecommunication industry that you may need, for example, explainability for telecommunication services. So if you use some complex model that you cannot explain when things go wrong, then you will be actually in a lot of trouble. There are some legal consequences of service interruptions in telecommunication industry. So when you are using certain use cases, many of them prefer less accurate but more explainable simple models. But those are changing, I would say, in this industry.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. I was kind of curious on like what are these like type I'm kind of new to the telecom industry, so I didn't know that there were legal backlashes for any of these. Could you go over like an example of something like that?
Sure. There are several aspects. It's a tightly regulated industry in many countries, telecommunication industry. As you mentioned, like, privacy is one of the main concerns. So you have to make sure that whenever you are working with your customer data, you are not revealing any information about your customers. That's completely private. And then you also have some obligations in terms of service times. So you cannot, if you actually interrupt your services more than a certain amount of time, then you can have some legal consequences. And then you also need to explain all your certain interruptions. So if something goes wrong, and if you don't know why that happened, then you cannot ensure that you will not be facing the same problem in future. And that's not acceptable in this industry.
That makes sense. And I know you touched on this a little in your last answer, but as the vice chair at the international telecom industry, I'd love to hear more about your work and where you see the industry going in the next 5 to 10 years.
This is quite interesting area, like especially like as more and more machine learning applications are picking up for network automation in mobile operators. I mean, this has not been always the case. There has been several works before kind of automating your network. But introducing machine learning is the next step in that sense. But we have to continue doing this with 5G and beyond networks because the network is becoming very complex. Some vendors say more than 40 to 100 times more complex for 5G. And we are going to start seeing introduction of satellites more into the terrestrial networks. So it's even going to get more complex. So we have like new frequencies, like millimeter waves. The network is becoming more dense to answer the requirements of the users, high bandwidth, low latencies, and etc. So we will be serving different types of services on the same network. You have health, you have autonomous networks or like autonomous driving cars. You have hospitals at one hand, you have some manufacturing at another, like you have industry 4.0, and you have your traditional customers who are asking for more and more data. To answer all of them on the same platform, you need to make sure that you are using certain automation using machine learning and AI technologies. Otherwise, it's no longer feasible. But it's not all that complicated because we also have different trends in the telecommunication networks. We see virtualization, softwareization of both radio and core. So it makes it easier to program your network. And so it is kind of, you have a challenge, but on the other hand, you have the technology going towards more programming your network and automating your network. So in the focus group, actually, this is the second focus group, like because of the importance of machine learning for network automation, there are new focus group and initiatives coming from different standardization organizations. ITU initially had a focus group on machine learning for future networks between 2018 and 2020, where I also served as vice chair. And with that success of that focus group, now the second focus group is established in early 2021. And we are actually targeting expediting the process of introducing machine learnings for mobile networks. So to make that work, you have some standardization gaps. So we have been going through many use cases and trying to understand some requirements and check the architecture, identify the gap, and then propose some specifications that will make things easier for mobile operators to move to intelligent networks. And in this focus group, we have many representatives from operators all over the world. We have vendors, we have university professors and PhD students as well. And we have researchers from different sectors, all collaborating together in creating this type of standardization. And I must add that this is not the only standardization body, like the 3GPP, ETSI, NGMN, and many others that I might have missed, are also working towards this goal. And there are some efforts bringing all these bodies together so that we have a more consolidated view of the future in that respect.
Oh, wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And would you say this is probably the biggest challenge within the telecom industry for the next 5 years?
I can assume that integrating machine learning in the next generation of networks will be very challenging task. And operators are willing to do that though. So many operators are also looking into creating their own talent in developing this type of applications in their networks. Some of them are also collaborating with external bodies in doing so. So we will see a lot of movement in this area and a lot of challenges will be addressed. But I also would like to maybe add that there are certain research aspects that needs to be addressed as well for these technologies to become mainstream in mission critical networks. Like explainability, as I mentioned earlier, is a very important aspect. So we have these very fancy deep learning networks are very accurate results, but then if you cannot explain what happened, I mean, you may not ensure your audience that you trained on the right statistics and etc. When things go wrong, so you have to do some explanation. Trustworthiness is also very important. So you need to make sure that these networks cannot be fooled with some adversarial attacks and etc. So this is becoming very important. And also, like, you can train your network on different use cases, but you need to be able to learn quickly for different situations, or similar or different situations. For example, you can train some quality of experience model where you are trying to estimate your customer's video quality, and you can train your model for certain region. You should be able to do it, repeat it for other regions as well. So transfer learning becomes important. Or you actually train for one application, and then you should be able to do this, repeat this for other applications as well. And that is very important to address. Maybe finally I should add that federated learning is becoming very important for this domain, especially when you consider the spacious deployment of base stations all around the country. Then it makes more sense to kind of process information at the edges in a federated, distributed manner. And then this way, there are several benefits. One of them is privacy, if you actually do the right set of tools. And then another one is actually you are not transferring too much information within your network. So you are not clogging your network. You don't introduce more overhead for your network. So that is going to be very important. And we see more and more studies in this area, like the federated learning as well. So there are these type of aspects that needs to be addressed as well.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize like how hard it was to make sure that it was standardized throughout like all of the different types of systems that are running it, because the telecom industry is so huge, right? So now I wanted to touch base on your experience at Or Data. And I understand that you've been leading data science teams to help integrate data pipelines, machine learning, and cloud computing companies that are looking to switch to machine learning. What has been the biggest challenge in doing so, and what do you enjoy about it so much?
That's a good question. That was actually a different path for me, so that I experienced multiple industries and problems in multiple industries. So what I see is like creating a model is one thing, it's a challenging task, but then deploying that model is even harder for many industries, mainly because they are not very used to that. So many industries are just starting to use new applications, machine learning applications. Some of them are already deploying applications, but so there's a mix of all. What we see is we need to treat the whole end-to-end process as a living organism. So you cannot just create a model and deploy and you are done. So now you need to create pipelines to be able to easily maintain your overall process. And you need to be checking if your model is drifting, if your data, the test data or the new data is actually changing with respect to the statistics of your trained data. So with constant monitoring, if needed, you need to retrain, you need to introduce new models, do A/B testing, etc. This is the whole ecosystem that you need to be considering for many industries. And what I see is in many problems, we do not have to deal with very big data. Most of the times we have small data when compared to the big data standards. With this small data, you need to be doing a good job in terms of handling the data engineering part. So you need to create useful features. You need to make sure that the data quality is well. So you need to spend a lot of problem in the data part, data injection, data cleaning part. So exploration part or validation part. So these are very important aspects that I see that applies to many industries. So we need to see the end-to-end process as a living organism, as I mentioned earlier, where we need to ensure the validity of our models overall, and we need to create pipelines. I also would like to mention that many industries would like to introduce this type of applications with their own employees. And I think that is important to bring all these employees up to a level where they can implement their some solutions for their own problems. And this is also something we are working closely with many companies. So we are trying to train their employees. I think this is important to bring the talent overall. But what we see is for this type of talent, the domain expert, to be applicable in many problems, you need to able to have kind of Lego-like components within your machine learning pipelines so that they can change some configurations and use the model that was created before. They don't need to deal with the complexity of model development. You may have some other teams that are focusing on this. They need to be able to try new algorithms, new parameters, new data inputs, and etc. easily, so that you see more and more applications of machine learning in the network, and they don't have to deal with the overall process. They don't need to worry about how am I going to deploy this, how am I going to inject data here and there. And so that is also becoming a trend, I would say, because of the lack of talent that is domain expert and machine learning expert. So you need to kind of introduce tools and processes that makes it easier for non-programmers to deploy models as well.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask, I think you like mentioned it without mentioning the name, but I was just gonna ask you about like, especially with people with a lot of domain knowledge but not statistical knowledge, MLOps has been incredibly popular within this within the data science industry as people go and try to integrate machine learning within their companies. So, how do you feel about the future of MLOps, and do you think it's a viable solution?
You're right. So I mentioned about creating pipelines. This is part of the MLOps process. I think we are going to be starting to hear more about the MLOps because many organizations want to be able to create reproducible processes and make the deployment of machine learning models easier and easier. So MLOps frameworks, many cloud solutions, on-prem or cloud solutions, are starting to offer full stack MLOps solutions where you can do like versioning on your data code or pipelines, components, and etc. You can record your experiments. You can compare the performances of different models, and you can deploy easily with new use cases. So I think we are going to start to see more and more implementations of MLOps in the organizations. It's kind of like how DevOps change the whole software industry. I think we're going to start to see that MLOps is going to be changing this. And I must say that we are also starting to see the demand from different sectors. So many organizations are coming to us asking for consultancy on MLOps or asking for resources on MLOps. So we are seeing this trend in many organizations. I think it's here to stay, and probably it's gonna be more popular in time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you. And so we at the Data Standard are building a community of data enthusiasts and data thought leaders. Everyone is open for collaboration and to connect with each other. What can our community do to help you?
I think it's important. So like the machine learning is a general. So what we can say is the talent, you learn a lot with many different talents all over the world. It is important to be open to new developments in this industry, in this technology. So you are seeing a lot of changes even in short amount of time. So we have to keep ahead of the game. We need to be able to see the developments in this area. So I think in that respect, this type of programs or podcasts will be increasing the awareness of data science challenges, applications in different industries. So this is, in a sense, helping us to improve or progress in different areas.
Thank you so much for being on our show today. We really, really appreciate your time. Where can our community find you online?
So you can actually reach us at oredata.com, and you can also search my name for LinkedIn if you have any questions. We are more than happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, we'll definitely link you. And great. And for more information on the Data Standard, you can find us at www.datastandard.io. Thank you so much for joining and listening today, and I hope to catch you next time.
Thank you for the invitation. I enjoyed it. Thank you.